An Ontario court has sentenced a 21-year-old man to life in prison for an attack he carried out at a Toronto massage parlor in 2020. He pleaded guilty last year to 1 count of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The court previously heard that he was inspired by incel, or involuntary celibate ideology. That prompted a judge to rule that the attack was an act of terror. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick is outside the courthouse where the sentencing took place. And so, Megan, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, given those guilty pleas, Andrew, what really was at issue today and what the judge needed to decide on was whether the murderer would be sentenced as a youth or as an adult. The man, who we cannot name because he was charged under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, he was 17 years old at the time of the attack, 6 months shy of his 18th birthday. The Crown wanted him sentenced as an adult. His defense lawyers argued he should be sentenced as a youth, which would have meant he would be out of prison in a couple of years. It would have been a fixed prison term. But the judge agreed with the Crown that he should be sentenced as an adult, which means a life sentence for that first-degree murder conviction. He was also charged with attempted murder. The victim's name was Ashley Noel Arzaga. She was 24 years old when the accused murderer went into that spa that day in February of 2020 with a long sword that was inscribed with a misogynistic slur that is linked to the incel ideology. He also stabbed another woman who was working at the spa. She survived. That's where the attempted murder charge comes from. Now, the judge ruled that the accused murderer, the murderer, deserves a life sentence in part because of the, quote, savagery of the murder. He recounted to the court the circumstances of the stabbing, saying the victim was stabbed 42 times. Even after she had fallen to the ground, he continued to attack her. And the judge, taking into account that he says the accused has shown little interest in rehabilitation programs, he said this murder reflects the evil of the incel ideology. And he said, yes, while the accused pleaded guilty, there was overwhelming evidence against him, including surveillance video, Andrew, that captured the entire murder. So the judge saying because of the seriousness and the nature of the murder, that this case requires a life sentence. So in this case now, the murderer will be allowed to apply for parole after 10 years. Normally it's 25 years for a first-degree conviction, murder conviction, but given that he was a youth at the time, it'll be 10 years before he can apply for parole. That doesn't mean he'll get it. It just means he can apply for parole after 10 years.
And Megan, his lawyers spoke about the ruling. What did they have to say?
Well, yeah, he has 3 defense lawyers. They spoke to reporters after, and they said how sad of a story this is. Court has heard the details of this young man's upbringing, how he had dropped out of high school, didn't attend high school, spent a lot of time online, and fell into this incel ideology. The judge also had rejected the murderer's assertion that he had been brainwashed by this ideology. The judge said no, that the accused sought it out, accepted it, and then acted on it. But his lawyer saying this was a perfect storm, sort of a poor upbringing, some poor circumstances that this young man grew up in combination with his isolation and other factors. But they say this case, Andrew, sends a signal. This is the first time in Canada someone has been convicted of first-degree murder inspired by the incel ideology and has had a judge declare it an act of terrorism. Take a listen to what his defense lawyer said about that.
It's the first in Canada. The typical terrorist case that we see are those where people are planning bomb attacks on trains, people are planning bomb attacks on planes, and people who are planning attack in different countries, or they are part of an organization like ISIS. What we have here is an organization, is Incel, which is not even an organization. It's a chat room where it is sort of coordinated by persons who promote hate against women.
So a significant case that will be watched, Andrew. And just to note, too, the lawyer spoke to us. There were other people in the courtroom who did not wish to speak to us, including members of the murder victim's family and the woman who survived the attack. She was also in court today as well.
Megan, thank you. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick live in Toronto.